I'd like to welcome everyone and remind everyone that this is being recorded. Housekeeping, as people come on, please mute yourselves. We welcome questions. You can put them in the chat box and we'll get to them at the end. With that, I'd like to turn it over to our OGS, and I'm not going to say this correctly, but digital library, you'll correct me, digital librarian. That's not it. What is it?
So I'm the library collections manager, but I just say that I'm the librarian because that makes the most sense.
Okay.
So.
Linda Swanson, who is far more qualified than I am to be presenting, obviously. Anyway, if you have any questions, put them in the chat box. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Linda for the second part of her library series, hopefully to help you get through searching our vast amount of resources that we have at the Ohio Genealogical Society. Linda?
Thank you very much. And thank you for attending today and spending some time with me and giving me an opportunity to talk a little bit about the catalog and to get you familiar with it. I'm going to start by sharing my screen. So that you can see what I'm talking about. And let me just do a little bit of housekeeping here. Okay, so I'm going to repeat just a few things from my last talk, but this talk does assume that you listened to my first talk about Who's Afraid of the OGS Library Catalog. This is going to be, we're going to move on from where a lot of the things that we talked about in that last session, but I do think it bears repeating how to actually find the OGS Library Catalog. And also a couple little things about using our website. So this is the OGS website. You find it at ogs.org. You can see that up here in this box. You can always tell that you're on the OGS website when you see our logo in the upper left-hand corner, as well as the address being ogs.org. Now, even though this talk is about the library catalog, I do want to mention that it is a good idea to log into the OGS website. You can do that by clicking on the My Account button in the upper left-hand corner and logging in. Now that you're logged in, the way to find the OGS library catalog, and again, you don't have to be a logged in member at all to use the OGS catalog. There are a couple functions that I'm going to be describing later on that work a little better if you are logged in, but you absolutely do not have to be logged in order to see the catalog. So you find the catalog under the Visit the Library tab on our website. And there's a menu here on the left-hand side, and the first thing is the library catalog. And when I click on that button, you can see that that has opened up in a new tab. So here's the website, and here is the library catalog. And I need to remind you that this library catalog is software that we subscribe to from another company. It's not our very own website. This is on another company's software and another company's servers. So with that in mind, there's only so much that we can customize on this catalog. This particular catalog was created for small libraries and schools. And Ohio Genealogical Society, we happen to be a non-circulating library. So there are things about this catalog that don't necessarily pertain to the Ohio Genealogical Society. In particular, the two big ones are these buttons right here. This is where you sign in, and this is My Account. And again, you absolutely do not have to be a signed-in member of OGS to use our catalog. It is free and available. We want everybody to know what resources we have in our library. But having said that, you actually can't sign in, and you do not have an account on this library catalog. Again, this is a subscription service. This is for libraries that check out books or have people who might put things on hold or have fines or addresses and things like that. We are a non-circulating library, so we don't use those functions of this of this particular catalog software, but those functions still exist. I can't take those buttons off and customize it like that. So I apologize that it's a little confusing, but you actually do not log into this particular website. The other website is actually the OGS website that I did log into. So looking at this page, we went over a number of the things that you see on this main page. So in particular, I want to talk about these 3 buttons right here, which I did not cover in my last talk. This first one is the enhanced search. This is a popular searches, and this is a search results. The popular search button is exactly the same as this popular search that shows up here. And I can show you that when you click on it, you have the pictures to click on, and you can find yearbooks by county. That's a particular popular search that I have set up for you. It's actually the only one I have at this point. I hope to set up new ones in the future. So that works exactly the same. So we weren't going to necessarily be talking about that. The search result button, I'll have to show you what that does a little later on. So we're really going to be focused today on talking about this enhanced search. Now, if you remember, this is the main library search bar. And you can select a library, but as we went over in the last talk, there is only one library. That function exists if like the library had different branches or something like that. So for now, there's only one library, and the default search is anywhere or a keyword search. But then I also demonstrated that there is a menu here that you can pull down, and you can search by other terms. You can search anywhere or a keyword search, which looks at the entire description of a resource in this catalog. You can search just the author field, you can search just the subject field, or you can search just the title field. But under the enhanced search button, there are other features or other fields that you can search. If you look at this right here and open up this menu, there's way more fields to search than just those few initial ones from the main website or the main search box. And we also have 3 different fields here that we can search, and they are connected with some words. So I want to show you one in particular for an example. You can search the abstract, you can search anywhere, that's the keyword search, data publication, you can search by ISBN or ISN numbers, local call numbers, the publisher, you can see the whole series, even a title series, and even a URL field that you can search. So you have a lot more options when it comes to this enhanced search function. So I'm going to pick one just to do a demonstration, and I'm going to do the date of publication. And I don't know if you're aware, but we are in a time now where every single year, more and more works enter the public domain when the new year begins. So a lot of people celebrate Public Domain Day, which is January 1st. So January 1st, 2023 released a whole year's worth of resources into the public domain. And now things that are from 1927 or earlier are in the public domain. And one reason that maybe I might want to search for this is because I am the digital librarian here. Once things enter the public domain, it means that I am free to digitize them and make them available on the website without needing any kind of special permissions or without violating people's copyright status. So let's see how many items we have. We're searching the data publication field for 1927. And you can see right here, we have 177 results. So that's quite a few. That's kind of exciting. If you remember from my last talk, you can change how many results per page show up. And also, this shows you how many pages of results you can go through, and you can type a number in here if you want to quickly get through the number of pages. But if you remember my talk from last time, that drives me crazy. I like to scroll instead of go to page. So you can actually change the number of resources that are showing up on this page, or the number of results. by choosing, 20, 50, or in my case, I'm choosing 100. I like to scroll. I don't like going page to page to page. And if you scroll down, you can see some of the kinds of works that are now in the public domain. This is a city directory, and you can see right here, it says publisher, Columbus, Ohio, Polk, and it says 1927. That's where that number's coming from. That's the field that is being searched, or is the date that's in that particular copyright field. I can scroll down more. Here's a city directory and some family histories. If you remember from my last talk, this is the call number for the OGS library, and this prefix tells you what kind of work it is, and those prefixes are in alphabetic order. That's the sort method that is the default for this. So I'm going to scroll down. Here's some more family histories, and quite a few family histories. And then we get down, here's a Massachusetts resource that's now in the public domain because it was published in 1927. And again, these prefixes are in alphabetic order. So now we've got New Jersey, then North Carolina, and here's Ohio. So we're getting into some Ohio resources. And I wanted to stop and I wanted to show you this one in particular. I actually just cataloged this one last week. It's kind of a unique resource that we have here at OGS. This is the history of southeastern Ohio and the Muskingum Valley. But this actual one is actually not the book itself. This is a sales sample of this book. So, back in 1927, when the publisher's coming out and they want to sell this book to, maybe some bookstores or sell it to libraries, they created this little sales sample that showed you what it talked about the book. It talked about the author of the book. It talked about what was going to be in the book, and then gave some sample pages. In particular, it has a lot of sample pages of photographs. So somebody could see, oh, this is the kind of book that we're going to be publishing, and maybe they would go ahead and order that book. So I think this is kind of a unique little resource that we have. Now that I found this resource, say I was like, wow, I would really like to see that when I go to the OGS library. Well, instead of maybe scrawling it down on a piece of paper or taking a screenshot or something, our catalog actually provides you a way of capturing or making a list of works that pertain to what you're looking for. And that's done right here with this Add to Guest List button that's in the lower corner of this bibliography record. And if you click on this button, give the catalog a second to think, you can now see that down in this corner, it says that it's in my guest list. Well, what does that actually mean to be in the guest list? I'm going to scroll back to the top of the page, and I'm going to show you that up here at the top, we have a button called Guest List. And if you click on that list, this will show you the items that you put on your list. So you're just simply making a list of resources. And there's lots of things that you can actually do with this list. First, you can remove them all. If you're like, oh, wait, I'm going to clean out the slate, I'm going to delete them all. You can download this list to your computer. You can download the MARC records of this list. That's pretty detailed, and that's usually really more about how computers talk to each other. This is also an RIS format of it. It's another way that computers talk to each other, but if that's a format that you need, you could do it. You can simply print the list. If you click on print, you can see that this is what it looks like. You can send it to your own personal copier or save it as a PDF if you wanted. And then you can straight up email this list to yourself. If you click on this button, it will give you boxes to type in the to or the email address. You can give yourself a little subject, and you can remind yourself what this search is or where this came from. Hey, these are the books I want to look at in Ohio Genealogical Society. So you can mail it to yourself or you can email it to somebody else. I'm going to click cancel because I do not want to email that right now. I want to show you a couple other things you can do with this list. Just like you could do from the search results page, you can actually change the format of what this is. The default format is the expanded label format because I think it gives you the most information up front. But you can change this and make it more simple if you wish. You can just do a brief labeled one. You can see that it's much smaller now with a lot less information. So if you're thinking, oh, I'm going to create a great big list of resources, maybe you want to make them smaller so you don't have so many pages to print or so many pages to rifle through. You can also look at, really expanded information. This is the MARC record that I mentioned. This is how the computer tells you everything that is in all the fields in this particular resource. I don't know that that's very, very helpful for a lot of people. So, I do like the expanded labeled one, but I did want to show you that you have lots of different formats that you can look at to see this record in your guest list, as well as when you are doing your search results. I also want to let you know this is sorted by the call number prefix. That's the default way these things are sorted, but you can sort them in other ways. You can do it by copyright, you can do it by author, you can do it by title. So if you don't like this being in the call number prefix order, you can manipulate that order for yourself. So I just want to make sure that you knew that all of those options are available for you under this guest list. And you can tell that you're in the guest list because it's right here at the top of the page. One more last feature that I will mention, you could remove them all, or you could also go through your list and remove them one at a time by clicking this button down here. So now I want to go back to my search results. I want to exit the guest list. And that's where this button comes into play. This search results button, when I click on that, it will take me back to the last search that I performed. So you can see here I am back again with my 177 results of looking for things with the date of publication being 1927. You can, if you hit the reset button up here instead, or the home button, it's gonna wipe out your last search, but that won't necessarily wipe out your guest list. But I will say that if you're going to start creating guest lists or a list of resources that you want to look at when you come to the Ohio Genealogical Society library, you kind of need to do it in one sitting, because this catalog will time out after a while of inactivity. I think it times out at about 3 minutes. So, don't leave your computer to go, use a restroom or get a drink of water or a snack or something. Because if you walk away, it may reset. And when it does reset, it will wipe the guest list clear. So before you walk away, you might want to save your list in some manner. So that's all of the guest list. Now we're going to go back to doing some more work with this enhanced search, but we have to talk about doing Boolean searches or using Boolean logic to do searches. When we click on this button, you can see that there are these connecting terms, and, or not, that connect these 3 different boxes that you are able to search. And I want to talk a little bit about Boolean searches and what that means. And that brings us to the handout that I gave you for today. When you do Boolean searches with the logic and, or not, you are, say for instance, you're searching between 2 terms. And in this example, we have the term puppy and we have the term kitten. So if you use the and Boolean logics where you're searching for something with the word puppy in it and the word kitten in it, you are searching for items that contain both of those terms. And you can see that represented here in this yellow colored part of the Venn diagram. So you're not going to get items that only have puppy, and you're not going to get items that only have kitten. You're going to get that group of items that happens to have both puppy and kitten in it. So this narrows your search. It focus your search a little more on exactly the 2 words that you are searching for, the 2 terms that you are searching for. So we also have an or that we can use. Or broadens your search or causes you to cast a bigger net to find the resources that you're looking for. So if you do a Boolean search of puppy or kitten, you're going to get items about just puppies. You're going to get items about just kittens. And you're also going to get items that have puppy and kitten in them. So again, you're casting a much bigger net. You're going to have a lot more search results. You can also use a not term, which can be very helpful in kicking out the things that aren't important to you in your search. So in this case, we're going to do puppy, not kitten. And when we do this, again, we're narrowing that search. We're narrowing it down quite a bit. We're telling the computer, I only want items that have the word or the term puppy in them. I don't want any items that have the term kitten in them by themselves. And I also am not going to get any terms that or any items that have puppy and kitten in them. So that's the Boolean logic. And you can manipulate these in a couple different ways to help you really create the search that you want, to really focus in on those resources that you were looking for in the first place. So armed with that knowledge, let's go back to our library catalog. I'm actually going to make this a little bigger. I meant to do that earlier in this presentation so you could see it a little better. I want to mention that this main search box here, and in almost all main search boxes for databases and library catalogs and other kinds of things like that, there is an understood default that this is an and search. So if you put like the word Civil War in this search box, it's assuming that you're looking for civil and war. So it will only show you things that have both of those terms in it. So it's just good to know that that's usually the default. So however many terms you put in this initial search box here, and consider that they are here. See, here it is timing me out. So, you know, you don't want to get timed out and have your guest list reset. Anyways, so the things that you put in this box, it's going to find things that contain all of those terms in it. So let's go back to doing our enhanced search. And you can remember, hold on, I'm going to close this real quick. We have 177 results from the last time that we searched. We were looking for a 1927 in the public domain, date of publication. So let's say that we do a Boolean search to help kind of narrow down those results a little bit. So let's do date of publication 1927, and let's go ahead and put an and term in here. So and then I'm going to choose the subject to be Ohio, because, you know, if I'm going to digitize things for you all, I'm going to focus first on those items that pertain just to Ohio. So now we're doing a search of date of publication 1927 and the subject containing the word Ohio. And you can see that my results have narrowed down now to 142 results. So we have eliminated a couple from that initial research. And let's scroll down a little bit. You can see here's the city directories again that we were looking at. It looks like all of those family histories, they didn't have Ohio in the subject field. So all of those family histories are now removed from this search. You can see right here, you know, we've got the date of publication, 1927, and we have Ohio showing up in the subject fields. So here's some Revolutionary Soldier graves, some law reports. This is an actual magazine. Here's something about this Spanish War veterans. There's our sales sample, still in our guest list, as you can see. And then the next thing we come across here is something from Ada, Ohio. If you remember our call numbers, usually it's a state and then a county, and we all know Ada is not a county in Ohio. Ada is a city in Ohio, which tells me that this 1927 Northern from the Ohio Northern University is a yearbook. So this is a yearbook from Ohio Northern University in Ada, Ohio. I'm scrolling down here. Here's the 1929 one. I'm not quite sure why it's showing up. There might be a 1927 somewhere in its bibliography record that you can't necessarily see here. We scroll down here. Here's Akron. So we have North High School. We have the 1927 North High School yearbook. And here we have the West High School yearbook, the 1927 edition. And here's the University of Akron, 1927. But you know what? When I was trying to do this search, I really didn't have yearbooks in mind. I was maybe thinking a little more about items that would have information or history in them. I wasn't really all that interested in looking at a yearbook. So how can I maybe get those out of the way? Well, we can go back to our enhanced search. I'm going to scroll to the top of the page. We go back to our enhanced search. We can actually add another term to this advanced search. And this time I'm going to choose a connector and I'm going to choose the word not. So I'm going to eliminate this from my search. I'm going to go ahead and do an anywhere search, like a keyword search. So I'm going to do not, and I'm going to choose yearbook. And I'm going to do yearbook with an asterisk, because if you remember the last time from our last time talk, this is a good way to find the plural. So this way I can find yearbook and yearbooks, because this little wild card, this one's an asterisk, it's going to say, hey, I'm looking for anything with the term yearbook with it that might be connected to have any other letters that follow the word yearbook. So here we are, 1927, subject is Ohio, but not yearbooks. And let's see what happens. And if you can see, my results are way down now. We're down to 20 results. So I really narrowed and focused this search to the things that I was really hoping to find. So I also want to mention at this point, I worked really kind of hard on this search. We put together all these terms and all these, in all these fields connected with all this logic. So I kind of worked hard. Maybe I want to save this. And instead of having to save them all one at a time by clicking this button here, you can also click the button here where you can add this page to your guest list. So I'm going to click that so we can see what happens. And if you go up to the guest list at the top and click on it, you can now see that these items I have added to my guest list. So, and again, I can still manipulate them. I can remove them. I can make them look smaller or bigger. I can print it. I can email it to myself. I can download it to myself. But that's how you can work with that guest list that helps you remember the things that you were searching for. I'm going to go back to search results because I don't want to reset anything or change anything. I'm just going to go back to my results. Then there are 20 results here. I also want to point out that now that I have some results, I can also share this search or print this search. If you click on share the search, it actually gives you a URL that you can copy to your clipboard by clicking this OK button. So then you can take this URL, which is a specific URL that says this is looking at the Ohio Genealogical Society catalog on the MLA Solutions website, because that's the name of the company that creates the catalog. And it's doing this search. It's doing a search for these terms, but not yearbook. If you actually come back to this or if you actually use this URL, you will get this specific search and these specific results again. So that's another way that you can save the work that you have done. And again, you could also just straight up print this whole list right away. Okay, well, let's go ahead and do another enhanced search now that we know how to do these Boolean searches. Say I want to find out records about Wales or England. So I'm going to go ahead and do an anywhere search in this case. This is a keyword search. And I want to look for the term Wales. But I'm also interested in items from England. So I'm going to do an anywhere search for the term England. And I have chosen to use an or. So I'm really casting a big net. I'm looking for a lot of results of things that have Wales or England in them. And I'm going to clear this term out and go ahead and do this search. This might take the computer a second because I am expecting to get a number of results for this one. So it's going to need a second to think and process this request.
Linda, while we're thinking on that, I actually had a question.
Mhm.
Can you put more than one, for example, if you wanted yearbook in there with then an asterisk, can you do a comma or a semicolon and put year space book or different variations of it? Can you do more than one search term? I guess is
You
my question.
can, but then it's also going to remember that as an and. So you can do, manipulate them around, see what kind of results you get. But if you do like year space book, it's gonna within that particular field, it's assuming an and. So, but
What
yeah, you can definitely manipulate those things around a little bit.
what is the separator for putting more than one search term in a field? Is it a comma or a semicolon or?
I actually don't know. I
Sorry.
didn't do an example of that one, so you'll have to play around to find out. I'm not sure. Having the three search boxes usually kind of covers all the things that you're looking for. Again, give it a try, see what happens.
I will play.
Um,
Thank you.
maybe that's for my next talk. So anyways, I want to point out that I have 1,410 results. Like that's quite a few items to look at. And if you look here, I'm going to scroll down a little bit, you can see that the first one is going to be a resource about Alabama. You're like, well, that's interesting. Why is it England and Alabama? Well, if you look really closely, you can see that this is, because I did an anywhere search, this book is written by Flora England. So it showed up in my results because of the term England being in the resource, even though it just happens to be the author's name as opposed to the subject or something like that. I'm going to scroll down. I have British Isles. There's the term England in it. I'm going to scroll down a little bit more. Here's a Canadian resource. And the reason that this is showing up is because South Wales, and there's my Wales term, is showing up. And then here's another Canadian one. Here's another one about Connecticut, because it's the New England Historical Society. So you can see that by using an or connector in your Boolean search, you're going to get a large variety of things. And maybe this is maybe a little more than I expected, or a little more than I actually wanted. So let me just show you the difference between searching for Wales or England versus Wales and England. So this is going to narrow my search because both terms have to now show up in the resource or the description of the resource. And hopefully this won't take as long as the Wales and England one did. As you can see, this has narrowed it way down. I am down to 46 results of items that have both of those terms in it. And I'm going to continue to scroll down and take a little bit of look. Here's some parish maps that are England and Wales. Here's genealogical search in England and Wales. This one says my ancestors were Quakers. And what does that have to do with England and Wales? Well, because it's coming from the history of Wales and England showing up down here at the subject, as well as this happens to be a handbook. It's a little bit of a how-to book. Here's one that's English wills, including both England and Wales in it. So that's why that shows up. Here's a book called Handy Tips to Do Your Genealogical Research in England and Wales. Those two terms I was actually looking for. It's another handbook. It's another how-to book. Here's another resource about ancestry, as well as some family histories. That handbook thing, boy, when I was thinking about researching England and Wales, I didn't really need a how-to book. I was maybe looking for more of a book that had information, history, or records in it. So let's go back up to our enhanced search and see what we can do to maybe eliminate all those handbooks that I wasn't necessarily interested in. So if you go back and you do your enhanced search, you can use a not connector, and you can choose not anywhere handbook. And I'm going to use the wildcard again and add that S at the end to make it so it also will count handbooks as well as handbook. I don't want any of those in my results. And let's see what happens when we search like that. And now I'm down to 38 results. So again, I've narrowed it down even more. And I've eliminated those how-to books. They're not going to be in this list anymore. So that's really how to do the enhanced search and how to use the Boolean terminologies and logic with that enhanced search. I want to show you another hint or technique when you're searching our library catalog. As I mentioned earlier, there's an and that's implied when you use this particular search box. So if you search for something like war history, you were looking for things, this is going to be an anywhere search or keyword search. We're looking for anything, items that have both the word war and the word history in them. And let's see what kind of results we get. This one might take just a second too, because I'm sure we have quite a few items on our shelves that contain both war and history in them. And we do. You can see my results are 1,466 items or resources. And I'm going to scroll down a little bit. Here's one from Alabama that has war and history in it. If you look very carefully, there's Civil War and there's the word history in it. Scroll down a little bit more. Here's another one that has war and history in the description. And this one also has war and history. Here's history for sure. And it has Indian wars. So that's why those items are showing up. And let me show you another trick for searching. And this is something that you can definitely do in these enhanced search boxes as well. And that is you can use quotation marks. So I'm going to surround war history with quotation marks. And by using quotation marks, I am telling the catalog or the computer to search for these two terms in this order next to each other within a resource. So it's war space history. I want it exactly like that together in the description somewhere. So let's see what happens when we search this way. This is another way to narrow your search. And you can see it really narrowed my search. I only have 18 results now, but all these results, war and history, are going to be right next to each other in the resource. And if you look at this first one, we have a subject here, and it ends with war, and the next word is history. So that's why that one shows up. If we scroll down to this one, you can see in the title, here's the term war history right next to each other, just like I asked it. If you go to this one again in the title, war history. So you can see how that really narrows and really pinpoints your search for maybe something very specific that you were looking for. I like to use quotations a lot if I'm searching for titles, like of works that I'm pretty sure are in there. I definitely want those two words together. I find it very helpful that way. Okay, let's do another kind of search here. We're going to arm you with a few more things that you can do. Let's search for veterans. Oops, be nice if I could spell it. And grave. Now, if you remember from my last talk and what I did just a second ago, I'm going to put asterisks at the end of this because I want to include items like the plurals, veterans and graves, and anything else that might contain this kind of, that have this word and then followed with some letters. So I'm going to use those wildcards and I'm going to use asterisks. And I'm going to go ahead and do another anywhere search. And remember, there's an implied and, so it has to have both terms in it. And you can see I have 21 results. If I scroll down a little bit, you can see that there's the term veterans and graves right here in the title. If I scroll down to this one, I can definitely, here's veterans. And I don't necessarily see graves right off the top, but it must be within the part that maybe I can't see, or the fields that are hidden. But it's definitely about burials, so it's within the same genre. If I look at this next one, I think there are some, here's veterans for sure. And this one doesn't say graves. This one actually has the word graven in it. So this is the author, and because I use that little wild card, I said anything that starts with Grave and ends with whatever, this one happened to come up because her last name is Graven. So it was a little unexpected, but it still follows the rules that I did when I did my search. So let's do this search again. And I want to go ahead and use those quotation marks because I want to show you that you can combine things like wildcards and quotation marks and Boolean searches. You can combine all these things together to get a really specific kind of search. So when I'm telling it I want veteran and grave right next to each other, my results are narrowed down to 13. And you can see that in work here, right here, veterans grave right next to each other. I'm going to scroll down a little bit more. Here we have veterans grave registration record. And what's interesting is by using that wildcard, I even got a possessive. I wasn't even thinking about possessive. This is a plural possessive. But yes, that would definitely be a term that would show up because I used a wildcard at the end of the word veteran. So if you scroll down here, we have veterans graves again. So that just to show you how you can use those kinds of quotations and those wildcards and things like that to really do a very specific kind of search for the thing, exactly the things that you're looking for. Okay, well, let's do a couple more examples. I'm going to go ahead and do a search again, just from this general search box. Say I'm looking for things about the Mayflower that have to do with Ohio. So again, this is Mayflower and Ohio because it's implied in that search box. And we do have to wait for the computer to think. You can see that I have 127 results here. I'm going to scroll down a little bit. So these are, the first one that pops up is something having to do with England. I was doing Ohio and England, or, Ohio and Mayflower. Not quite sure why this one's showing up. Probably something, maybe the donor of this book is from Ohio, which is a field you can't see necessarily from this main page. I'm going to scroll down here. Here's another England one. And here's a family history. But I wanted it to be a little more specific than that. I was really looking for things that had much more to do with Ohio. So I'm going to change this search into an enhanced search. And what I'm going to do this time is I'm going to do an anywhere or a keyword search for Mayflower. And I'm going to include the and Boolean term. Oh, by the way, just before I do this search, I did want to mention that there is a reset button right down here. And when you click on that reset button, it will wipe out your terms so that you can start with a fresh new search. You can also delete them individually if you want to, but just to let so you know that there is a way to clear out your search all at once. So I'm going to do that anywhere search with Mayflower and the word and I'm going to do a subject search again this time for the term Ohio. And I'm not going to worry about this last box. I'm just going to do those two for now. So I had 127 results the last time, and now I have 30 results. So this is much more focused on what I was interested in. So here's the Mayflower Bradfords of Ohio. So we have both terms in there. Here we have the Buckeye Mayflower. This is the periodical of the Society of the Mayflower Descendants in the state of Ohio. So now we're really cooking. That's really has something to do with what I was looking for. We can scroll down a little bit further. Here's some membership books for the Society of the Mayflower Descendants of Ohio. Here's a yearbook for them. Here's a yearbook for the Columbus colony in particular. And then I got down to here, and I have 1925 Mayflower from Plymouth High School. A yearbook. That's a yearbook. Look, here's another yearbook. Looks like Plymouth High School used to call the yearbook the Mayflower. And not to pick on yearbooks. I don't mean to pick on yearbooks in general, but I was really interested in finding other kinds of resources. So in the OGS library right now, we have over 70,000 resources in it. And in addition, we have about 23,000 yearbooks. So when you do searches in this catalog, you're going to come across quite a few yearbooks. So in this case, no offense, yearbooks, you're wonderful and you're delightful. And when you want a yearbook, well, you really do want a yearbook. But in this case, I don't. So I'm going to use that not term, and I'm going to do again an anywhere search, and I'm going to say not yearbooks, and I'm going to, go crazy, use my asterisk as a wild card so that I don't get yearbook as well as yearbooks. And I'm going to do a search. And as I scroll down, now I'm down to only 7 results. So I have eliminated quite a few yearbooks from my search. Got a nice tidy list of things having to do with the Mayflower and Ohio. And while we have this particular group, actually, I'm going to scroll down a little bit further and see that actually I do have a yearbook from Plymouth High School. Well, how did that happen? I just eliminated yearbooks from my search. Well, if you look really carefully right here at this summary, you can see a typo. We have spelled yearbook with 3 O's. And the computer's not a mind reader. It's looking exactly for the terms that I put in there. So it didn't eliminate the term yearbook with 3 O's because I didn't tell it to. So, these searches are pretty accurate, but they are only as good as the information that's put in the record. So, mistakes do happen. So while we are looking at these Mayflower Society books, I wanted to point out, so this one is a yearbook, but notice that it's intentionally has a break. So, that's why this one is also showing up, is because it's not one single word yearbook, it's year space book, which is not the way that I looked things up. And this is actually intentional on my part when I did the cataloging, because I wanted to separate this kind of yearbook from your high school and college yearbooks. Now, this bears repeating, and I definitely mentioned this in my last talk, but I definitely want to highlight and emphasize how important this is. And once you have these kind of results that show up on a page like this, and you find an item that you're very interested in, I really want to encourage you to click through to the details of this particular work. And if you look at this here, this description here, you can see that there's 11 of these things available. So this is not just one yearbook, this is a lot of yearbooks. And you can see the details of all these holdings by either clicking on this icon that gives you the details or clicking on the title of the work itself. And when you do click on that, you come to this particular page, and I'm going to scroll down a little bit. This is actually showing you all the holdings that are in the library. So all 11 of those resources that it mentioned on that first page. And if you look at the call number, you can see it's in our Ohio section. It's a 977.1. This is a special group, and here's their cutter number. That's how you find it on our shelf. You can also tell that in this call number, there's a year. This is 1931. So what this tells me is that we have the 1931 yearbook of the Society of Mayflower in Ohio. Here we have the 1951 one. Here's 1972, 1978, and so on and so on. So you can see exactly which ones of this particular work we have in our collections. This is a yearbook, comes out almost annually for them. So there's going to be a lot of them out there, and these are the specific years that we have. I'm going to scroll back up a little bit. I do want to mention you can share this item, you can print this item. I'm going to scroll back down a little bit. You can add it to your guest list if you want to. So all of those kinds of things are available to you from this particular page. This is the holdings page. I do want to remind you that if you want to go back to where you came from, you're going to have to click this return to search results button or this button, that your little browser things up here, they don't work with this particular catalog. You have to actually use its internal buttons to go back to where you came from. So I want to return to my search results. Here I am with my 7 results. Unfortunately, it doesn't kick you right back to the item that you were just looking at. That's kind of a bummer, but that's just the way the catalog works. And unfortunately, I can't do much about it. So I do want to scroll down again and take a look at some of these Buckeye Mayflower entries that we have here. Again, this is the Society of Mayflower Descendants in the state of Ohio. Here's the whole description of the work. But I want to show you this field here in particular that starts with www. You can see it says https://ohiomayflower.org. If I click on that link, and you can tell it's a link when I hover my cursor on it, it opens up in a new tab up here at the top, the actual website for the Ohio Mayflower descendants in the state of Ohio. So OGS strives not only to provide you with resources, but to also provide you access to other information that you may actually be looking for, even if maybe you didn't realize that you were looking for it. You know, maybe this is the first time you've ever heard of the Society of Mayflower Descendants in the state of Ohio, and we want you to be able to discover how to connect with that group. So we gave you their webpage in our item description. So I'm going to go ahead and close this out, but I did want to mention that this field exists, and this field is the URL field. So this is where you have URLs or web addresses will show up in this particular field. And let me show you how you can actually use that to your advantage a little bit. You can see that Mayflower is actually a term that's in this particular URL. But if you go up to your enhanced search, maybe you remember, I'm going to reset my search, clear out all my terms, and maybe you might remember that the URL field was one of the fields that we actually could search. So if I choose that as a field, we just had Mayflower show up in, so we know that's a term that will show up at that field. Let's see what happens when we search that for that. And I got no results. But wait a second, just a second ago, I saw Mayflower in that URL field. How come that didn't show up? Well, it didn't show up because the term Mayflower was part of a longer web address. It had characters that came before the word Mayflower. It had characters that came after the word Mayflower. So you're going to want to employ your wildcards in order to help you find some of these websites that may or may not be in the URL field. So let's see what happens when we actually search for Mayflower with using wildcards, allowing anything to come before or after the term Mayflower. And when we do that, you can see we have 4 results, and scroll down. These are the things we were looking at earlier that all have the link to ohiomayflower.org. I scroll down, here's ohiomayflower.org. Scroll down again, ohiomayflower.org. So we're now picking up things in that www field or the URL field that have web addresses that contain the word Mayflower in it. Now, why would I bother to show you this? Well, you may recall or you may know that on the Ohio Genealogical website, remember that's a separate website from this catalog, we have a number of digitized books and digitized manuscripts available on our website. And I'm just going to tell you that all of the web addresses to those particular items, those digitized items on the Ohio Genealogical Society website, all are going to have the term OGS.org in them, because that is part of the web address for anything that's on our website. So how can we use that in this catalog? Well, using wildcards, like we just did with this Mayflower, we can search for anything that has OGS.org within the web address. And let me show you what happens when we do that. Remember, you're going to have to use your wildcards before and after in order to make these appear. And we're searching the URL field. When you do a search like that, you can see I have 327 results. So I have now found 327 items that are digitized on the OGS website. And I will show you what that looks like when I scroll down here a little bit. You can see here's the www field, and you can see that right here, the OGS.org shows up in this address. And this is a specific address for this portion of this railroad directory. Let me click on this and show you what happens. When I click on it, it's going to open it up in another tab for me. And this is where being logged into the website works for you. This helps make some operability between the catalog and the website work really well. Because I am already logged in, it took me directly to a page about this particular resource. You can see the title here. This is just the Sandusky section of this Sandusky, Mansfield, and Newark Railroad Directory from 1869. If you scroll down a little bit, you can see that there's a button here where we can actually view the item itself, this digitized work. And we have a whole bunch of information here that is all information or metadata about this particular digital item. You can see a whole entire description here of it. You can see who created it. And maybe this information isn't that important to you, and that's fine, but this is information about this particular digitized file. And if you click on it, it will actually open up the PDF of the work itself for you. Almost all of our digitized items online start with a face sheet that gives a description of what you're looking at, gives you the title, the author, the publisher, locations, any of that kind of information. I'm going to scroll down just a little bit. It also tells you in a paragraph here exactly how you are allowed to use this particular item. We are asking you not to use this in other ways except for personal, and we're asking you not to distribute it. And if you scroll down, you can actually start to see the item itself. These are the actual digitized pages of this particular work or this particular directory. Now, if you aren't a logged in member of the Ohio Genealogical Society and you click on one of those assets, it's going to take you to a page that encourages you to become a member of the Ohio Genealogical Society. So you can opt at that point if you want to look at it or not. You can always join. I'm going to close out these tabs and kind of go back to where we came from. So I'm going to close that and then close that. Now I'm back to my catalog. So like I said, OGS.org is going to show up in every single one of the digitized items that we have in the catalog. I will say there are more things on the website than are showing up here in the catalog because I haven't quite cataloged them all in this manner. It's something that I work on every single week. So I also wanted to let you know that you can search for other kinds of resources that aren't necessarily OGS resources in the same manner. So if I go back to this particular search, I'm going to change it to just look for web addresses that say org in them. I'm thinking in particular of Library of Congress, the Allen County Public Library, and that have digitized things that show up on the Internet Archive, which you could search archive.org here if you want to. I'm just going to do some orgs in general because I want to see what kinds of things might show up when I search for that URL field or the www field for anything that might have org within the web address. And I'm using those wildcard asterisks. Okay, I have 415 results. So that means that there are 415 items in our catalog that have org in that www field. And you can see this one right here. This is hnet.org review. And if you actually click on this particular book, it's going to open it up in a new tab for you. And this is actually not the work itself. This happens to be a review about the book. And the reason we give it to you here is you can read a bit about this book and see whether or not it pertains to any of the information that you're seeking. So no, it's not the full book, but it does give you more information than the catalog alone. I'm going to close this out. I'm going to scroll down. You can see that here, this is another one of those HNet reviews. And you can kind of be like, well, you know, I don't maybe really want the review. I kind of wanted to narrow it down to org websites that have the actual item itself in it. Well, how can we do that? How can we make that search look like that? If we go back up to the top, we can go to our enhanced search again. We've got our URL being org. But remember, we can use Boolean searches and Boolean logic to do a not search. So I can tell it not in the URL field. Oops, URL is going to be at the bottom. Not in the URL field do I want the term review. And I'm going to use wildcards around review as well, because, you know, any parts of that web address can come before or after the term review. So I'm saying, hey, all those orgs, no reviews. Let's see what happens when we do that. So we're down to 387 results. So, you know, maybe it's not super small yet, but we have definitely narrowed or pinpointed our search more for the kinds of things that we were looking for. And if I scroll down, you can see, you know, here's the OGS resource. This is also another OGS resource. Here's one that's on archive.org. Let's click on it and see what happens. And on archive.org, you can actually look at this whole digitized book as well. So even though Ohio Genealogical Society didn't digitize this work, it is definitely available to the public. You don't have to be a logged in member of OGS. But if we know it's digitized and we can put it in our catalog, we just want to help you find the resource as quickly as you possibly can. So that's probably all that I'm going to cover today. I did want to mention I'm going to put this down and take a look at my, this is back to the handout. At the bottom of your handout, I did talk about some other things about using wildcards. In particular, I talked about the asterisk versus the question mark. So the OGS catalog can use both asterisks and question marks. The OGS catalog does not use exclamation points or pound signs, so that's good to know. But just understand that when you use an asterisk, the asterisk is allowing you to use more than one term to be wild, you know, any amount of characters, any amount of characters. So like for the word train, it'll give you train and trains, but also trained, that's more than one character. Training, that's definitely more than one character. But if you use question marks, that's pretty typical for just replacing one letter. So if you want to, you know, maybe you narrowed it down so you just get license or licenses or licensed, you know, just having one character at the end of the word, you would want to use something maybe like a question mark. So I'm just pointing that out to you for you to read on your own. In particular, I also want to point out that you can use the asterisk wildcards for alternate spellings of surnames. I think that would come very helpful to a lot of people. I happen to mention the Stewart versus Stewart, S-T-U-A-R-T versus S-T-E-W-A-R-T. When you use an asterisk in the middle of it, both of those will come up in your search. But I also noticed the word Stockport shows up too, because it is S-T, a bunch of letters ending with R-T, just like Stewart. So I just want to give that handout to you so you can mess around with it and experiment for yourself. But at this time, I am happy to open it up for questions or anything that you guys may have, or I'll show you some more examples of anything that you would like to see. And thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you all. We did answer some questions in the chat, but one of the things I wanted to point out was this is the second in hopefully what will become a series of presentations for the library as a webinar, correct?
Correct. Yeah, they may not be about the catalog, but we'll do about other things. Yes.
And then we also are bringing back our Librarians Day, which will be March 31st.
That's right. I did want to point out the information on our website. If you go to the ogs.org website and you click on the events tab, you can find out information about our Librarians Day, this is the first time we have bringing it back since COVID. So yay, we're very excited to invite you all to come to our building. It is in March. It is on March 31st. And if you go to our calendar, here's the entire explanation of that day. It does cost $25 to attend the day. We have a couple of different presenters that are going to talk a little bit about genealogy in particular, as well as we're going to give a library tour and a tour of our archive. And I do want to mention that boxed lunches are available, and those would cost an extra $15. And I'm going to scroll down a little bit on this page. And I just want to mention that when you get to the ticket part of the page, I think Lily asked me to point this out, make sure that you are purchasing a number of tickets. So 0 won't work. You just got to decide how many tickets you want to purchase before you click the Get Tickets button. So we'd love to see you here.
Thank you very much and look forward to your next webinar.
Oh, again, thank you very much for your time. If you have any other further questions, you can always contact me at lswanson@ogs.org, or you can find me through the website. And happy searching.
Great. Thank you.